Hi, everybody, and welcome to my channel. My name is Rainer, and this is Rainier Books. We are 11 weeks into the new year, which means that we have passed the 20% mark of 2021 already. So today I'm going to give you a wrap-up of the week that lies behind us. Week number 11, sounds and bounds from my computer here. So let's get started. Well, we have a week behind us where we, again, almost every week, should and have to talk about racism. And this issue comes once again from the United States. On Tuesday, a man, 20-year-old Robert Aaron Long of Woodstock, Georgia, northeast of Atlanta, an hour's drive to Atlanta, went to Atlanta to the north, and he went to 3 different spas and he killed 8 people of Asian American descent. A very racist attack. It's not the first racist attack against Asian Americans. We have had hundreds. We have a long history of racism against Asian Americans that didn't start with Donald Trump, as many might think, but it also already started hundreds of years ago, 200 years ago already, when several acts were passed by Congress that forbade, for example, forbade the emigration of Chinese people to the United States. There is, of course, after Pearl Harbor in the Second World War, there was a wave of anti-Asian attacks. People didn't care if people were from Japan, Korea, China, Singapore, or whatever. They just simply attacked Asian people, not only in the Second World War or in its aftermath, but even decades later and even today. People might insult or diminish or attack Asian Americans and say this is for Pearl Harbor, something like that. So there's a history of racism, not only against black people, but also against Native American people, also against people of Asian American descent. And this is not the first case. That when Robert Aaron Long went to Atlanta and killed these, he said he killed in his first interrogations that the police held with him. He is still alive. He's a killer, a serial killer who didn't kill himself, but who was arrested. And in his first interrogations, he has said that he killed these women because the 21-year-old active Baptist church member has a sex addiction, and he wanted by killing these women, he wanted to erase his own sex addiction, which is, of course, rubbish, nonsense, racist BS, actually. This is a horrible deed. And of course, the President of the United States, the former President of the United States, number 45, has his part in that, because he has raved and raged. He has raged against Asian Americans ever since the virus started last year. He was talking about the Chinese virus, the Wuhan flu, or whatever. He always sort of attacked Asian Americans, and many Asian people are afraid to go out in America. I read stories again all over the news that people are scared of going out, that they are being told to go home to your country. Okay, education is a big problem, we know that, but I always sort of react without having the right words to this, other than we have to fight racism each and every day. It's not enough to say, as Ibram X. Kendi put it, it's not enough to say, I'm not a racist. The only answer against racism is anti-racism. And here we can connect beautifully to the next topic, because I think thanks to Karen Evans, who talked about that in her vlog yesterday, I think, on BookTube. She sort of pointed me towards an article that the Ghanaian American author Yaa Gyasi has written in the British newspaper The Guardian, where Yaa Gyasi again starts the debate that we already had here on BookTube, that how do we deal with when a lot of white booktubers like me, like everyone else who's white and privileged and free of being attacked, racist attacked, when we speak about racism and when we speak about educating ourselves and reading lists and sort of produce the 10 books you gotta read in Black History Month, in February in the United States, or in, I think, October in the UK, or was it November? So what right do we have? And Yaa Gyasi asks the question in that article, I'm going to link it down below. She asks the question, what are those people actually doing? And she also tells us about how she feels that her first novel, Homecoming, was a big bestseller in the US, and she wonders if that only was a bestseller because people want to get rid of their bad conscience towards Afro-American people. And she also asks, I think she starts a very interesting debate, which I not completely agree with her, because what am I supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? Shouldn't we read books by African-American authors? Of course, you are right, Ja, when you say that we should not read books because someone is Chinese American, or like, for example, Charles Yu with his great winning novel Interior Chinatown. I didn't read this book because Charles Yu is Asian American. I didn't read Brit Bennett's novel The Vanishing Half because she is African American. And I think that a lot of my fellow booktubers, no matter what color their skin has, and we read, I hope that every one of us reads the books that we read. I hope that each and every one of us reads the books that we read, never mind if it's Ocean Vuong or an Asian American author, or if it's Hester Wombly-Wyden with his great novel Winter Counts, that I liked because I didn't read it because, I read it actually. One of the main reasons that I read it, and so I'm guilty, is that I read it because it brings me information and an understanding of Native American culture that I don't have, but that I'm interested in. And probably there are other titles. I wanted to know, for example, when I read The Nickel Boys, how were boys being treated in this academy? And there were white boys and black boys treated very, very badly in this Nickel Academy. And there's a lot of racism that is prevalent in this book. And I wanted to know about it. So that's why I read the book. That's not the reason I read these books. And I think that most of us on BookTube, and I really believe that we don't read the books to be to sort of brag about our diversity. I'm just interested in other people's lives. I'm interested in how women live in South Korea. That's why I read the book by Born in 1982. I wanted to read more. I'm also generally interested in Japanese culture and in the Japanese special way of writing that Japanese literature has very often. And that's why I read authors like Ogawa or Murakami. And I don't want to put my check on that. I never felt that. And if that's maybe the unconscious in me that is sort of forcing me to read that in order to present myself as diverse, then it's definitely wrong. But I think that authors should have, and I hope that they can gain the self-confidence to realize that people read them because of what they write and not what kind of color their skin has. I think that is on BookTube. Of course, there is in the industry. I think there is a certain tendency towards diversity that is not only a tendency that is based on a love of human rights and of diversity, but of course it's also of commercialism that both, I think, awards and both Publishers have understood that diversity sells very good today. Personally, I had invited many years ago. I invited a Turkish-German author to Sweden, and it was very funny to go around with him, different lectures that he gave to school children here in Stockholm in German, because he writes in German. And he told me that he knows that he's sort of the Turkish guy, and that people make their check on him when he wins awards, when he gets nominated and things like that. But he simply doesn't care so much, he told me. And I, of course, tried to assure him that's only one reason why we invited him. If his books would have been boring and not interesting to readers, I wouldn't have invited him. But his being a Turkish son, a son of Turkish immigrants in Germany, was one of the reasons actually why I invited him, because I wanted to present his voice and his way of seeing things in a different way to the students here. So that was important to me. But I don't fully agree with Yaa Gyasi here that there's so many people who, of course, I think that if white people shouldn't make like 10 books you have to read on to educate yourself on the issue of race in the United States. Or we shouldn't do that, but we should read openly and we should read diverse. It's the time. The time has come finally that we are trying, or we should try to read from as many perspectives as possible in order to enhance our in order to enhance the way we think, the way we understand, in order to understand more. I also have to read certain things because I don't have, in my daily life here in Stockholm, I don't have, especially in the pandemic, I don't have the contacts to each and everyone out there to be discussing issues like that. And actually, Yaa Gyasi, I picked up your book on Friday, Transcendent Kingdom, and I hope it's okay that I read it, because I really am interested in the story of that immigrant family in the United States and how it is dealing with the situation they get in. So partly I understood her article. Of course, I understand the sort of anger and the sort of doubt that it's been carried with or carried from, but I also sort of not understand the way that she cannot simply enjoy that people read her. If you just buy books like this, or like Cherry Jones, or like Brit Bennett, or like whatever, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, and put them just on your shelves, because when you have visitors, your academic friend visitors, you can show that they will see all those Afro-American titles, and if you haven't read them, of course, then you shouldn't buy these books. But people are people, and there are this kind of people, and there are this kind of people. There are people, I'm sure, who do this. But I'm not rich enough to do this, so I just borrowed this from the library. I didn't even buy it, and I hope I like it. I will put it on my TBR for the next couple of weeks, and I'm very interested. Of course, I think the discussion and the article is very interesting, and it's very necessary, sort of, that we discuss the topic, and that we sort of question ourselves, why do we read more diverse than we did? When I read Ocean Vuong's book, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, 2 years ago, I think, almost 1.5 years ago, I didn't pick the book because I thought, as a heterosexual, white, Caucasian, European reader, I want to make a check on Asian Americans, I want to make a check on gay literature. I didn't do that because I picked up the book because after all what I've read about the book in newspapers, on Goodreads, or whatever, this sort of thing interested me. The story, I think, was interesting, of a Vietnamese immigrant coming to the United States and his issues both with integrating in the new country, with being racistly attacked, and of course also his coming out as a gay young man in I think it was in I forget it. In Hartford, Connecticut. That was where the book, I think, is playing. And this was interesting to me. I didn't pick up the book. I didn't buy the book. I actually have it in one of my boxes that are now ready for being transported to my new apartment in a couple of weeks. So I think that we don't pick up the book. I don't pick up the book by Nam-Joo Campbell. Before I pick it up, I'm not looking, is she maybe gay? Is she maybe Native American? Is she maybe black? Then that gives me extra points reading this. No, I just simply don't care. I care about the story. And if the story says something to me, and if it answers the story, if it answers the question, so what? And it touches me in a way, then I might be interested in reading it. And it doesn't say that I will read it just that I'm going to force myself reading it. I put down books by white authors. I put down books by black authors. Brandon Taylor, Real Life, for example, was a book that I didn't like at all. I put it down after 100 pages. Another book that I didn't like, but that I read because it was a buddy read with Courtney Farrader, was Ruman Alaam's Leave the World Behind. Also a book by an Afro-American author, which I didn't like. And I'm fine with that. I like books by all kinds of authors. And I hope that this will be for a couple more years to come. So I'm really engaged in this, and I really think that we shouldn't be the persons who read books just because you have to. But there are always things in our lives that we do just because we have to. Or some people live their lives just because they have to do training, to run every morning 10 kilometers, to eat vegetarian, to eat vegan or whatever, because just you have to. You just have to. And that happens, and maybe I got Yaa Gyasi wrong. I would love to talk to her about this. So if you see this, drop me a note and maybe we can have a talk here on BookTube. To my reading week. My reading week was very unspectacular. I would have loved to show you a new vlog, a new walk somewhere in the beautiful vicinity of Stockholm. I was planning to go to the royal castle, actually where the royal couple, Carl XVI, Gustav, and his wife, Queen Sylvia, are living. Drottningholm Slot. It's a beautiful building. I show a picture of it here. But I also planned to, that was my other alternative, to go to the university and show you around in the University of Stockholm. Some nice buildings there, and then there's a beautiful forest behind it and a beautiful walk where sometimes you can see horses on the fields. That's really beautiful, but I didn't do it. I didn't do it because we have a high surge of the virus. Again, we have 305 per 100,000 in 1 week, 305 cases per 100,000 in 1 week, which is far too high. It's 4 times higher than in Germany. And the virus is on the rise again, and it's very dangerous. And I think the precautions that we take in Sweden are way too low, because there are far too many people who do not follow the recommendations. And that's why I decided not to do a Stockholm walk right now, because I have to travel on public transport to get there, to get to my starting point. And that's something that I don't want to do with this kind of infection that we have right now in society. What I've read, I'm really sort of in a little reading slump, so I focus, Margaret, be safe. I focus very much on the passage to India, because I will have the live discussion with Margaret Pennard on Friday, and I read this one. And the other ones I have put away just for the moment. I have watched a couple of, I've listened to a couple of podcasts. I want to give a great shout out for a podcast that I finally, from the San Francisco Chronicle. San Francisco Chronicle is a newspaper that I really like. I mean, I've never read the paper, but they do amazing podcasts, I think. And a new podcast from the San Francisco Chronicle is the story of the Doodler. The Doodler is a serial killer from the 1970s who killed at least 5 gay men in San Francisco. He was approaching them in gay bars and gay clubs in the 1970s, and he sort of draw their picture. And when he showed them the picture and he asked them to go with him somewhere, they were his and he killed them. So that is the Doodler, and the Doodler is still not, might be still on at large, might be still on the run. If he's still alive, he is still at large. And this podcast is a very great podcast done about not only the Doodler and the hunt after the Doodler, but also the story of gay culture in San Francisco in the 1970s. Very interesting. Another podcast that I discovered by listening to the Doodler, because they did an advert on that one, is, I have to look it up here on my little phone. It's Crimes of the Centuries with Amber Hunt. Crimes of the Centuries with Amber Hunt. That's a very interesting podcast. I listened to 3 episodes today, actually. Crimes of the Century, wherever you get your podcasts. Well, I think that was everything I had to say today. I am looking forward to a new, beautiful week. Reading, hopefully, finish Passage to India this week. Have a good discussion with Margaret on Friday. I also am very happy tomorrow, because tomorrow, for the first time in this new year, I will talk again with another soccer international player. Tomorrow I will, I can reveal that now because it's not so dangerous. Tomorrow I will talk to Swedish international Rebecca Blomqvist, who plays for VfL Wolfsburg in the German Bundesliga. She is she's a new player at Wolfsburg. She comes from Gothenburg, and she might have a chance to play she has a big chance, I think, to play in the Olympics in Tokyo this summer for Sweden. Olympics that, you might have heard this, will take place with audience, but only with a Japanese audience. No foreign visitors are welcome to Japan, understandable reasons. So that was everything I had to say to you today. I hope that you have a great week, that you had a great weekend, and I hope that we have a good discussion about Yaa Gyasi's article about BookTube, and about why we should read or not read Black authors, or authors of color, or diverse authors, whatever. And I hope that you are safe, that you are already vaccinated. Many of my American friends are vaccinated. That's beautiful to hear. Here, almost no one is vaccinated. That's the opposite. We had the AstraZeneca, but I stopped talking about that. I could talk an hour about vaccinations and stuff. I don't do that. I just say, wear a mask, socially distance, and be safe. And I see you soon. Bye.